Hey, welcome back to Mr. P. Alps with Algebra 2. This is Unit 3, Topic 2, SLT number 8. And we are going to be, once again, writing equations based upon given graphs with transformations. So a little bit more involved in the last video, though. So this first activity gets us to look at just the basic functions for sine and cosine and getting to an understanding of the way we're graphing it. So it's not the same way we were graphing it before. Now we're going to consider the midline, the middle, which is at 0 in this case. So if we're going to do sine of, so it's going to go from here to here to here to here to here, and it's just going to keep going back and forth, moving one block at a time. So it looks like this. And therefore, the midline is at 0 and the amplitude is 1 in this case. So the y-intercept has changed because the y-intercept is now 0 instead of the y-intercept being the height of the Ferris wheel. So it's a little bit different. And then the same thing, okay, so that was basically sine. So it's the same graph I just did a second ago. So I went from here to here to here to here. That completes one rotation for 2 pi amount of time. But then you can do the same thing on the negative side. So it goes like this. So it does 2 full rotations, one on the negative side and one on the positive side. For cosine, it's going to be very similar, only cosine is going to start at the maximum in this case. Or it could start at the minimum, and then it basically does the exact same wave. So down, down, back up, like such. Okay, so what is the amplitude of this graph? So the amplitude means the distance that is away from the midline. So it looks like it starts right here at 0. So it looks like the midline is at 0 and the amplitude would be how high it goes, which would be 4. And the period of the graph, now this graph takes 6 pi amount of time in order to complete one rotation, whereas a full circle is 2 pi. So that means that 2 pi divided by 6 pi means it's only doing 1/3 of one cycle. It's only doing 1/3 multiplied by x. So the period of this case is actually 6 pi. So I kind of missed the answer. I went straight forward to the next step. So what is the equation of this graph? So the equation is going to be amplitude multiplied by the sine of 1/3 x, and the reason why it's 1/3 x is because the period once again is 6 pi. So anytime the period is more than 2 pi, then you know you're only going to do a part or a fraction of one circle. And then you add the midline, which is 0, but I'm going to write it there anyway. It's 0 because that's where the middle is. And there's your equation. So 4 times sine of 1/3 x. Question number 2. So this time the midline looks like it's shifted. So it looks like it's shifted up to 1. It looks like it's starting at the maximum. Midline is at 1. Amplitude is also 1. That's the height from here to here or here to here. The period, how long does it take to complete one cycle? That would be pi amount of time. What is the sine equation for this graph? Okay, so a little bit confusing there. So I'm going to change that to cosine. And I know you could do a sine equation for this graph, but that would require transformations, and I'm not going to get into that right now because that's a little too advanced for this step of the video. So this is a cosine function. Now you might be wondering, how did I know that was a cosine function? Well, it starts at the maximum. Anytime it starts at the maximum or the minimum, it's cosine. If it starts at the midline, or whether it goes up or down doesn't really matter, it's going to be sine. So this is amplitude of 1 times cosine of, now the period was once again pi, so it completes 2 full rotations in x amount of time, and we add the midline. That's a +1 right there. What is the cosine equation for this graph? Oh, okay. So I just kind of skipped this question. I went straight to this answer. I'm not going to do the transformation in this case, like I said before. What is the midline of this graph? So the midline looks like it's at 0. The amplitude is 1, 2, and okay, so it's going by 2s. 2, 4, 5. 2, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 is the amplitude. The period, how long did it take to complete one full rotation? Well, all right, sneaky one here. It's only doing half a cycle in 8 pi. So for it to do a 1 full cycle, so that would be 8 plus 8 more makes 16 pi. What is the sine equation? Okay, once again, I'm going to stick to just the cosine because we're not dealing with transformations right now. So that would be 5 times cosine of, and remember it's cosine because it starts at the maximum. Cosine of, now this gets tricky, so it's 16 pi. So you can always divide 2 pi divided by whatever the amplitude is, and that'll give you the number that goes right there. So the pi's cancel out, so you're left with 1/8. So this is 1/8 x plus the midline, which was 0. And there you go. All right, so this is how you construct. So we'll do another one of these. And I think this might be the last one. Yep, it sure is. So what is the midline of the graph? That would be 2. Dotted line's already there. The amplitude is 1. Midline, is -2. Sorry, -2. Amplitude is 1 because from here to here is 1. What is the period of the graph? So how long does it take to complete one rotation? Interesting. Okay, so it looks like it takes 1/3 pi to do a half a rotation. So if you double that, you get 2/3 pi. Ooh, that's going to make things challenging. What is the sine equation? Okay, this is sine. Let's cross off cosine. This has an amplitude of 1 times sine of, you can always do 2 pi divided by 2/3 pi. The pi's cancel. 2 divided by 2/3 is the same as 2 times 3/2, which 2 times 3 is 6. 6/2 is 3 wholes, so that's 3x. Yeah, I know I did that pretty quickly. 2 divided by 2/3. I just did leave, change. I left 2 alone. I changed this from division to multiplication. I changed 2/3 to the reciprocal by flipping it, and then I solved. 2 times 3 is 6. So you can put the 1 on top, bottom if you want. 1 times 2 is 2, and then simplified. And then add the midline. Boom, -2. So it looks like it's sine of 3x -2. So this moves it up or down. This makes it taller. That's your amplitude. That's the height of the graph. And this basically tells you how wide the graph is. If it's a fraction, it's going to be fairly wide. If it's a bigger number, then it's going to be it's going to be narrower because, well, in this case, it's tricky because this time it's not going by the standard units, which is the reason why it looks wider than it really should be. But typically, this number means that it does more waves in 2 pi amount of time, so therefore they're going to be compressed skinnier together. Unless your x-axis is really wide, then it's going to make it look wider than it really is. So it's kind of skewing it. All right, thanks again for watching, and that's it. Please look forward to more videos coming in the future. Thanks again. Have a great day.